Hey everyone, and welcome to the Retro channel. Today we're going to check out this Commodore 1084S monitor that's having some issues. So first things first, let's plug it in and see what it does. So that is a classic sign of the flyback in this monitor has basically failed. So let's pop this open and take a look. Alright, so let's open this thing up. They are pretty simple. There's 4 screws around the outside that need to come out, so 2 on the bottom, 2 up the top there. I don't think the camera's going to be able to see into those holes. And there's 1 here at the back. So a bit of history about this monitor. It comes from a supporter of the channel and local retro enthusiast Randall. So he picked this up, said it worked for about an hour or so, and then it just switched off, made a slight popping noise, and that was the end of it. Yeah, just from powering it on there, it definitely sounds like a flyback issue, which is what these particular Commodore monitors tend to fail from. Yeah, if you get a Commodore monitor with that noise of like a high-pitched whine that slowly dies down when you switch the power off, it's almost definitely the flyback has gone kaput. Now, I will also give a shout out to Adrian, who recently signed up to the Captain Blood supporter tier. So thank you, Adrian. I really appreciate it. And yeah, thanks to everyone who supports the channel in whatever way possible. It really helps me sort of continue to put out these videos. And let's be honest, I do enjoy repairing stuff. So it's the best of both worlds, and it's definitely an escape from the real job, I guess I have, the day job. I honestly would much rather be doing this. So yeah, I really appreciate it. And hey, hopefully one day I'll be able to do more of this stuff. Alrighty, looks like we're pretty much open. So the rear cover should slide off. Now this is the stereo model, as denoted by the S on the end of the model number. So there will be stereo speakers in the back of this. So there is a connector on this rear board here that goes to the speakers. So we just need to disconnect that. Of course, usual safety warning, if you are poking around inside a CRT, they can hold a high voltage even after they've been powered off and unplugged. So yes, be very careful. Pretty much, if you've never worked on a CRT before, don't follow my advice, but yeah, if you decide you want to jump into there, be prepared for a shock, potentially. It's not as scary as some might make it out to be. As long as you're vigilant of where you've got your hands and everything, you should be safe, but yeah, always proceed with caution, I guess is what I'm trying to get at in a long-winded way. So here it is. Let's flip this around here so we can see it a little bit better. As you can probably see, our flyback transformer is just down here, and that's pretty much what we're going to focus on. That noise is almost definitely a flyback transformer failing. So what we're going to do is pop that out. I don't have a spare one on hand, but I can potentially swap one out from another monitor that I've got back there and confirm that the flyback is definitely the issue. So yeah, let's get some of these cables out and pull this flyback transformer out of here. Now, even though our flyback probably hasn't generated a high voltage for a while, so there's probably no voltage stored up in the CRT itself, it still always pays to just make sure it is discharged. So a long-handled screwdriver with an alligator clip, just clip to the ground portion of the CRT chassis, so usually one of the ears of the picture tube. Otherwise there is a ground strap which is connected to this spring, which you may not be able to see. There it is, I'm just pulling it out there, but hook it onto one of those, and you just want to slide your screwdriver under the anode cap until you feel a solid part, which is basically the little, if I pop this off you'll be able to see it a bit easier, these little tabs here. So the actual CRT itself is what's storing all this charge, so we just want to touch this little metal ring just here, just to make sure it's discharged fully. Now these can also build up a charge when they're left sitting for a while, so before I reconnect the anode cap, I go back in and discharge from here one more time just to make sure that the CRT hasn't rebuilt a charge. That should be pretty much safe to touch. There's obviously some larger filter caps in the power supply down here. They could still be holding a charge as well. Most of these things will have a bleeder resistor to bleed off the charge when it's powered off, but you don't want to just assume that the bleeder resistor is working properly. So it always pays to make sure the larger capacitors, anything pretty much over 50 volts, is discharged as well. So with the multimeter, this one has a low Z or low impedance mode, and I can use that to just check these caps here. And it'll beep at me and tell me what voltage is there, if any. It'll also bleed off that voltage fairly quickly if there is something stored up. But yeah, this massive filter cap here has 0.7 volts, so no concerns there. There's a couple of larger 200 odd volts capacitors on the neck board, but they usually have already bled off all their voltage long ago. So yep, all good here. Let's disconnect some of this stuff and get this flyback out. Now the neck board itself you can gently sort of wiggle it off from the back here, just like that. And the rest of the stuff, yeah, pretty much just unplug cables until you can get at the rest of this. Oh, the power supply here. There is a little tab just here that needs to be pushed in, and then this whole section can pretty much slide backwards. It's going to be a bit of a challenge. Okay, do that. I'm just going to hold it so it doesn't clip back in. All right, disconnect some of this stuff. Obviously, you want to make sure that you reconnect everything when you put it back together, because yeah, there is a ground loop, and if you leave some of that disconnected, you're going to have high voltage being stored up in the tube with nowhere to go, so it potentially will target you if you don't give it its ground back. Right, so here's our main board free. It is still attached to the neck board because the flyback connects directly into this this neck connector here. So I'll have to disconnect that when the flyback comes out. But yeah, everything looks pretty clean in here. I'm not seeing any issues with any capacitors or charred components. The caps that are around the flyback area and the horizontal output transistor are probably the ones that you want to focus on. But yeah, everything looks good here. I'm not seeing any issues yet. Because this area gets quite warm, it can dry out some of the caps over time, but everything looks good here. Not seeing any issues. Now, the other thing that often happens with these is the solder joints on the flyback transformer can go cold. Well, they probably already were cold, but they can break off and you'll get little micro cracks around the actual solder joints. So that can be another issue that can stop your monitor from working, but in this case, yeah, everything looks good. Potentially some of these have been reflowed in the past by the looks of it. So everything's good there. And yeah, as I said, that noise is almost definitely just a dead flyback. There's nothing you can do about it. So let's heat up the desoldering gun and pop this thing out. The flybacks obviously aren't made anymore. There is a company called HR Demon, which are making replacement flybacks for this. I'm not 100% sold on the quality of their flybacks, and I'll explain a bit more about that in a future video, because the 1084 SP1 up there does have one of their replacement flybacks in it, and I suspect, I haven't confirmed it yet, but I suspect it is causing a blooming issue where the raster will expand. So if you've got a bright white screen, it'll actually expand or bloom depending on the changes in how bright the actual image is. So I think that is actually being caused by one of their replacement flybacks. Maybe I've got a dud one, or maybe they're just not as great or not as one-to-one copy as the original Commodore, or should I say Philips in this case, flybacks that are in these monitors. But I haven't confirmed that yet, so I can't say for sure that that is the issue, but that's what I suspect will be the issue. So yeah, I'll be taking a look at that. While I wait for the desoldering iron to heat up, I'm just going to apply some fresh solder here. Swap tips over. A bit of fresh solder on this just to sort of loosen things up. Makes it a bit easier to get this out when it comes time to desolder this. There's a couple of tabs that need to be pushed in. And if I've done this right, this should be loose. I think it is being held by this one here. Yep, that was it. Shut that up for a minute. All right, here's our flyback out. Now, like I said, it is still attached to the neck board, so yeah, that's a little bit annoying, but anyway, we'll get to that. Okay, so I've gone ahead and pulled apart the other Commodore 1084s that I have on hand, and they all use a different flyback. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to swap the flyback over, at least not in this video, but I have ordered a replacement. But while I've got these open, I may as well show you what the blooming issue looks like on this particular one here. This is the Commodore 1084 SP1, which normally sits up there. And I replaced the flyback on this when I first got it because it wasn't working at all. And after replacing it, it seemed to work just fine, but the picture actually expands with changes in brightness. So I'll set up the camera a little bit closer to the screen here and show you what I mean. Okay, so I've just locked the exposure on the camera. So this is kind of everything adjusted to their midway position. So brightness and contrast are both at midway, and the image looks quite good at the moment. But watch what happens, that's color. Watch what happens when we change the contrast. So if I go back down, notice how much the image expands in and out. Now, it is normal for the image to expand a little bit with changes in brightness, but this is quite a dramatic change, and it actually loses focus. So if we look closely at this SNES up here, normally you'd be able to see the little scan lines in between, but as we go up in brightness, they completely disappear and this thing sort of fattens out. Let me bring up another pattern just to demonstrate it. In fact, even looking at the 240p test suite, as I switch between the different menus, you'll notice that the screen shrinks in before it actually changes. So that is not ideal. Again, you'll probably have a little bit of shrinkage.
It shrinks?
But nothing to this magnitude for a well-regulated CRT. And we can see with this pattern that this should actually be a square, but it actually widens out towards the bottom. If I decrease the brightness a little bit, it turns back into more of a square, but bringing it up widens it out. So that's what I mean by blooming. So one more thing that I want to check while we're here is what the actual high voltage is doing. So I'm going to power off the monitor and we're going to use the high voltage probe to take a closer look. Now this is something that you really don't want to mess with if you don't know what you're doing. So yeah, consider this not a tutorial. We're just having a look. So high voltage probe is hooked up to ground. I don't know if the camera picked that up, but the high voltage from the CRT was jumping or arcing between the probe there. And this isn't even turned on at the moment. Now what I want to make sure I do is get the probe. Can't quite see it on camera, but I've got the probe in between the little hooks that go into the back of the CRT, because you don't want to push the wrong way on one of the hooks and then accidentally unhook it while you're trying to probe this thing, because then you're going to have just a high voltage lead just loose flying around electrocuting you. So I've got the probe set. CRT is currently off, so let me set up the multimeter so we can see it. Let's power this on. Now this is 100x, or is it 1000x? 1000x probe. So the reading that we see on the multimeter here, times that by 1000 to get the actual voltage. So at the moment it's saying 26, so we've got 26 kilovolts thereabouts, and it's quickly dropping down, I guess, as the screen came up. Let me adjust this again, and let's look at the difference in voltage. So let's bring it all the way down. So 25.95 kilovolts. Now if I bring the brightness and contrast all the way up, we're down at 23.7 kilovolts. So that's around 2200 volts difference. Let's compare that to a good CRT. Look at that drop off. Okay, so this one's the Commodore 1084 that normally sits on the other shelf on top of the Amiga 1000. And this has the original flyback in it. Let's bring up the contrast. So at the moment that's sort of set to the midway position, which looks fine. Bringing up the contrast to the maximum. The screen, or the raster, does expand slightly, but nowhere near the extent of the 1084 SP. So let's bring up the test suite again. As you can see, swapping through the menus, the screen doesn't shrink in like it does on the other monitor. So this has a lot better high voltage regulation. And again, the white square, I can just make out the scan lines in there. And yeah, it basically doesn't change depending on brightness. It expands a little bit at the bottom, but yeah, nothing like the other CRT. Let's take a look at the actual high voltage readings. All right, so the high voltage probe is in. Let's power this back on again. It is clicking a little bit, so it's not making great contact, but it's good enough for us to be able to have a quick peek if I had the source turned on. All right, so with everything set at the mid-range, we're seeing 24.8 kilovolts. If I turn this all the way down, so the screen's basically black, we go up to 25.03, and bringing the contrast and brightness all the way up, we hit 24.19, 24.2. So that is a difference of about 800 volts compared to 2200 on the other CRT. Power that off, watch the high voltage drop. 100 volts, 80, 60, la la la. So yeah, big difference between this flyback and the one in the other monitor. All right, so that's pretty much where I'm going to have to leave this one. I was hoping to get something repaired today, but I guess it's not going to happen without the parts to do it. So that's going to be it for this one. I do have a number of projects waiting on parts at the moment. Obviously the Amiga 1000, which is just down off camera in a bunch of pieces. I've also got the Commodore 64 RF modulator replacement that I'm waiting on parts for. There's the Sony CRT that I want to RGB mod, waiting on parts. So that's just kind of what happens with these videos. I don't script anything. It's literally is just dive in and start trying to repair stuff. So sometimes things don't always go to plan. But I hope you found the look at the blooming issue interesting. It is, yeah, as we saw, caused by poor high voltage regulation at the anode. Now that can be a fault with the actual CRT power supply, but I'm almost 100% confident that the power supply in this is not the issue. It literally is the replacement flyback. So hopefully we won't have that issue with the replacement flyback on Randall's CRT, but we won't know until it arrives. So yeah, that is it. Thank you for watching. Leave any thoughts or comments down below. And I'll catch you all in the next one. A massive thanks to the people that support the channel on Patreon and YouTube memberships. And if you want to do the same and get ad-free access 1 week early before these videos go public, along with a bunch of other little perks here and there, yeah, check out the links below to support. But yep, until next time, thanks for watching. Bye.